All right, Shalom. Shalom. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Wahabakak, Dash. I want to say double honor to the apostles and the elders at Great Millstone, for teaching his word and truth and sincerity and for ruling well. And salutations to my fellow Akim across the four corners of the globe, preaching in the name of Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai. It is the brother Gabar Yahweh from GMS Hawaii, coming to you with another lesson. And today's lesson is on Colin Powell, the former United States Secretary of State who died. Well, by the time you see this video, it'll be yesterday, uh, Monday, October 18th, 2021, the year of hastening the coming of our Lord, Yahweh Shai Mashiach. Okay, the only begotten Son of the Most High, Yahweh. All right, and so I was looking at Colin Powell's history, um, because of his death, I sort of look it up, and I noticed similarities between Colin Powell and Tiberius Julius Alexander. Okay, now Tiberius Julius Alexander was an Israelite who was in the service of the Vespasian dynasty. Okay, through Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. All right, and he played a principal part in taking down Jerusalem, the siege of Jerusalem. Okay, he did and again, in my just looking up stuff, through the spirit, I believe that this dude, Colin Powell, was Tiberius Julius Alexander in the reincarnation. And I could be wrong. That's not a doctrine, but their similarities are so intertwined with one another. I was like, yo, this just might be, because Tiberius Julius Alexander, he hated his own people. He hated his heritage, man. Okay, and he preferred to be a Roman over them to being an Israelite. All right, and that's the same thing with Colin Powell. Colin Powell, he was not a champion for his people. Uh, Colin, we won't get some of his history, but he's from two immigrant Jamaican parents, Jamaicans and Irish descent parents. Okay, now what's to say this dude not a chocolate covered Edomite, but through the spirit, I believe that this is that dude over and over again, because he played the same role in this life as he did in the ancient world, except that he didn't besiege Jerusalem this time, obviously, because we're here. You know what I mean? But he was definitely in power during the time of the what's that name of that documentary I was recently watching, called the Panama Deception, which they put a whole bunch of troops over into Panama to destroy Jake down there for whatever reason. And he was in the service of Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and I'm sorry, yeah, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, okay, and you never know, those Bush father and son could have been Titus and Vespasian all over again, all right, because they were that was like the only son, father and son leadership here, and all of these different leaders, they're all reincarnated, man, from the ancient world to this time we're in today. Just like kingdoms are reincarnated. Real quick, this is Ecclesiastes 1:9. It says, "The thing that have been, it is that which shall be done, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun." So there's no new thing under the sun. This man was a prominent character in the military in the Roman Empire, and then he became a prominent military person in this current Roman Empire, the second leg of the Roman Empire. He was high up in command. Both him and Tiberius was chief. What does it call it? Basically, like he was like the chief general. Chief of state. Whatever that. We're gonna get into it. But again, there's no new thing under the sun. So everything that was before is now. It says, "And is there anything whereunto it may be said, see, this is new? It have been already of old, which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after." Right. So, in this life, Colin Powell didn't remember that he might have been Tiberius Julius Alexander, but because of his spirit, that warlike spirit that he had in the ancient world, he came back. And what did he do? He served Esau. He didn't serve his people. All right. I'm gonna play this real quick because it kind of lets you know where this man stood about his people.
Candidate Joe Biden.
The values I learned growing up in the South Bronx and serving in uniform were the same values that Joe Biden's parents instilled in him in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, like here it is. He was all about America, just like Tiberius Julius Alexander was all about Rome. Even though he lived in Alexandria, Egypt, he was born in Alexandria, Egypt. He was an Alexandrian Jew. That didn't matter to him. He believed in the system that was ruling. You know, you hear this dude use these niceties, talking about the same things that qualities that he learned growing up in the South Bronx. And if anybody know, the South Bronx was a goddamn shithole. You know, but when he was growing up in the 50s, it was a lot of Jews there, so-called Jews there, and Jakes was there too. And he grew up amongst the so-called Jew, and he took on their ways. He preferred their ways over his own. And he joined the military, and he rose up the ranks to a four-star general. And the same people that he's championed, telling you about their ideals and their characteristics that they brought from their homelands or whatever. We know that Joe Biden is a whole demon. So what make him a whole demon too? They were all Satan worshipers. But again, the point of the matter is that he had more fidelity for uh, the enemy than he did for his own people. And that's the same thing with Colin Powell.
I support Joe Biden for the presidency of the United States because those values still define him.
Powell tended to avoid racial activism and often downplayed the portrayal of him as a symbol of Black achievement. But his groundbreaking roles inspired others.
The world lost.
Yeah, so you see, he didn't care for his nationality. He didn't care for his nation of people. He cared for Esau. He'd do anything that Esau tell him to do. Same thing with Tiberius Julius Alexander. So this is Tiberius Julius Alexander was an equestrian governor and general in the Roman Empire, born into a wealthy Jewish family, Israelite family of Alexandria, but abandoning or neglecting the Jewish religion. So he neglected his heritage, man. He rose to become procurator. A procurator is an ex-consul or ex-praetor whose imperium was extended at the end of his annual term office, and later were called procurios or proprietors. This was an innovation created during the Roman Republic. Anyway, it says he became a procurator of Judea, so he was over his people, the land. Basically he was a governor over his homeland under Claudius, while prefect of Egypt. And we know that a prefect is a magisterial title for varied definitions, but essentially refers to a leader of administrative era. And he was a state. He came back and did the same thing. It says he employed his legions against the Alexandrian Jews. So he put these legions against his own people in a brutal response to the ethnic violence, and was instrumental in the Emperor Vespasian's rise to power, just like he was instrumental in George Bush's rise to power. Okay, let me see. All right. Well, it ain't gonna really say anything. But anyway, let's go back to this. So he was just like he was with George Bush, both of the Bushes. It says he participated in the siege of Jerusalem as Titus' second in command. He became the most powerful Jew at his age, and his rank as one of the most prominent Jews in military history. Just like he came back this time, he was one of the most prominent Israelites, so-called Negroes, okay, West Indian, Haitian, whatever, of his time, man. Like there's other generals. They had other black generals, but this guy, he stood out, man. Why? Because he stood out in the ancient world, man. And again, this is all extrapolation, but I'm just saying what I believe. If it's wrong, then Salakia. But these dudes got too much in common, you know. Just like Prince was Mozart, and you can read Prince history and read Mozart history. It's damn near the same thing, man. All right, they'll paint these people as so-called white people, but in reality, there was no Edomite Jews living in Alexandria, Egypt. All right, them people were so-called black people, man, living amongst Hamitic people, man. Okay, living amongst the Mizrahites or the so-called Egyptians, man. And they had a stronghold. We had a stronghold in Alexandria, Egypt, man. Okay. Matter of fact, let me see if I can pull that up just to prove to you. We had Jews in Alexandria. Um, it's not how you spell that. Salakia. Yeah, we had Jews in Alexandria. It says this Acts 18 and 24. And a certain Jew named Apollos, born at Alexandria, an eloquent man and mighty in the scriptures, came to Ephesus. Uh, Acts 27 and 6. And there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria, sell it into Italy, and put use therein. And after 3 months, they departed in a ship of Alexandria, and had wintered in the Isles, whose sign was Castor Pollux, man. So when you go look up that word for Alexandria, all right, in the Hebrew, in the Greek, Slakia, in the Greek, okay, Alexandria, which we know that was named after Alexander the Great, that land after he died. It says a native resident of Alexandria, Egypt, man. So we had Israelites, we had a huge stronghold in Alexandria, Egypt, man. And just like Tiberius Julius Alexander hated his or had a disdain or didn't want to be looked at as a Jew, okay? That's the same thing with Colin Powell, man. All right, and his whole family. Okay, and he was definitely a part of the Boule, man. The so-called uh, um, the black version of the Skull and Bones, man. All right, and again, he didn't care nothing about his people. Just like Condoleezza Rice, she didn't care nothing about her people. All right, so going back to Tiberius Julius Alexander, it says Tiberius Julius Alexander was probably born early in the reign of Emperor Tiberius. His father was Alexander, an Alexandrian Jew who held the office of uh, Alabarak, or head customs in Arabian frontier. And guess what? Listen, let's check this out. Colin Powell's. Let's go to Colin Powell's Wikipedia, man. Right, and then let's look at some of his accolades, man. Colin Luther Powell, all right, was an American politician and diplomat statesman, a four-star general who served as his 65th United States Secretary of State from 2001 to 2005. He was the first African American Secretary of State prior to the election of Barack Obama as president in 2008. He and his successor, Condoleezza Rice, were the highest ranking African Americans in the federal executive branch. And we know how racist and sick this country is, all right? And you got Jakes that's with it, just like you did in the ancient world, man. All right? There's no difference from then to today. This is First Maccabees 1 and 13. Then certain of the people were so forward therein that they went to the king. I'm sorry, let me read verse 11. And this is First Maccabees 1 and 11. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. So you always had sellouts of our people. And Colin Powell is no exception to that. All right. They rather do what the wicked say than what how about Shemar Shai say. So it says he served as the 16th United States National Security Advisor from 1987 to 89, and as the 12th chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from 1989 to 1993. So and remember, this chief of staff thing is going to pop up again when we go into Tiberius Julius Alexander. Powell was born in New York City in 1937 and was raised in the South Bronx. His parents, Luther and Maud Powell, immigrated to the United States from Jamaica. He was educated in New York public schools, graduated from the City College of New York, where he earned a bachelor's degree in geology. He also participated in the ROTC at CCNY, or what's that, Community College of New York City, or City College of New York City, and received a commission as an Army lieutenant upon graduation in June 1958. He was a professional soldier for 35 years, during which time he held many commands, staff positions, and rose to the rank of a 4-star general. He was the commander of the U.S. Armed Forces in 1989. Powell's last assignment, October 1989 to September 1993, was the 12th chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, the highest military position in the Department of Defense. During this time, he oversaw 28 crises, including the invasion. Didn't I tell you? Look, including the invasion of Panama. Yep, I told you. Operation Desert Storm, Persian Gulf, and they put hell on Jake in Panama. They put hell on our people in Panama, man. Hit them with lasers, all kinds of stuff, man. Melted them, destroyed them. All for what, man? Then they went to the Desert Storm, the Persian Gulf against Iraq in 1990-1991. He formulated the Powell Doctrine, which limits American military actions unless it satisfies criteria regarding the American national security interests, overwhelming force, and widespread public support. He was the 65th State Secretary serving under Republican President George W. Bush. Titus. He was right underneath Titus again, man. You know, his term was highly controversial regarding the inaccurate justification for America's Iraq war in 2003. He was forced to resign after Bush was reelected in 2004. You see? And it says Colin Luther Powell, I'm just going to his father. His parents were both mixed African and Scottish ancestry. Luther worked as a shipping clerk and Maud as a seamstress. Powell was raised in the South Bronx and attended now closed Morris High School, for which he graduated in 1954. While at school, Powell worked in a local baby furniture store where he picked up Yiddish from the Eastern European Jewish shopkeepers and some other customers. He once spoke Jewish to a reporter and Yiddish to a Jewish reporter and Yiddish, much to the man's surprise. He also served as a Shabbos Goy, is a non-Jew employed in the Jewish people to perform them certain types of work. So he was basically Esau's slave, helping Orthodox families with needed tasks on the Sabbath. And you see, he was a whole demon. You know, and then he joined the military and became Esau's whipping stick again, man. So let's go back to Tiberius real quick. It says his father Alexander, an Alexandrian Jew who held the office of Alabarch, a traditional Jewish official Alexandrian during the Hellenistic and Roman period, seemingly responsible for taxation, especially customs. Yep, as head of customs in the Arabian frontier, but it may have denoted a senior customs official. The family of the older Alexander, a member of the Egyptian gentry, had Roman citizenship, something not infrequent among wealthy Jews of Alexandria. He also had businesses, connections with Agrippa, grandson of Herod the Great, and Antonia, mother of Emperor Claudius. Another prominent member of Tiberius Alexander's family was his uncle, the philosopher Philo, which Philo was an Israelite. He was a Jew. You know what I mean? With both Tiberius and his younger brother, Marcus Julius Alexander, the father preferred to give them grounding in classical languages. Did he not? He did the same thing again. He did the same thing again. Rather than have them receive traditional Jewish education, both had been groomed to enter into the Roman bureaucracy. Marcus Julius Alexander was the first husband of Herodian princess Bernice. Marcus died in 44, leaving no children. The Jewish historian Josephus introduces his portrait of Tiberius by condemning him for impiety, explaining that he did not remain in his ancestral customs, just like he did when he came back as Colin Powell, man. He didn't care for his people, man. He didn't care for his people. This is an article that says Tiberius Julius Alexander, the Jew who destroyed Jerusalem, and he was an Israelite. It says Titus, chief of staff in his campaign to conquer and raise Jerusalem in 70 CE, was born a Jew. So did he not come back as a chief of staff again? Yes, he was. It said it right here. He was a joint chief of staff He was the head of the Joint Chief of Staff, man. He came back, man. What does it say right? It says, yup, from 1987 to 89 as the 12th chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff from 1989 to 1993. He was the Joint Chief of Staff, man. He was the head honcho, man. Is the highest ranking, most senior military officer in the United States Armed Forces, and is the principal military advisor to the president. There it is. He came back, did it all over again, right? And he destroyed his people too, because he didn't care. Because them people in Panama are Israelites, man. It says his name was Tiberius Julius Alexander, and he was the scion of one of the most important Jewish families in the ancient world. His uncle was Philo, a communal leader of the Jews of Alexandria, and the first prominent philosopher of Jewish history. His father, Marcus, was an important Alexandrian official under the Roman administration and was famed for his gifts of gilded gates to Jerusalem's temple. His brother had married into the Jewish royal family in Judea. While he did not officially convert to paganism simply by fighting in the Roman army and participating in the Roman administration of the ancient world, he cut his ties with his Jewish roots. According to historians Martin Goodman and his study of Rome and Jerusalem, the Roman elite ignored Tiberius' Jewish origins, and he was treated as a Roman and not a Jew, just like they did with Colin Powell, man. They ain't treat this man like no nigga, man. You know, they ain't treat him like a nigga. They ignored that, and they treated him like an American, like an Edomite, man, of the highest order, man. They treated this man like an Edomite of the highest order. That's why when this nigga dropped dead, I mean, when they put a statue up with this devil, because you got devils of our own people. You got black devils, you got Edomite devils, right? They love this man. They treated this man like he was one of them, man. Okay? And he never stood up for black people, man. So-called black people. And he grew up in some of the most harsh times for Israelites in America, man. But when he joined the white man's army and he's like, look, man, I don't care about none of that. It's all about America, man.
The Buffalo Soldiers and other African Americans who have blazed the trail for 300 years of American history. And I hope the day will come soon when all parts of our society do for young minorities what the Army and the other armed services have been doing for young men and women of all color over the years.
Born in 1937, Powell was the son of Jamaican immigrants and grew up in New York City. He served 2 tours during the Vietnam War. He then served as military assistant to high-level government officials and a stint as national security advisor to President Ronald Reagan.
I've chosen a seasoned professional and Frank's right-hand man here at the White House, Lieutenant General Colin Powell.
He also became a 4-star general. As President George H.W. Bush's chairman of the Joint...
Yeah, they ain't treat him like no nigga. They treated him like one of them, just like they did in the ancient world. It says they ignored it. It says, according to historian Martin Goodman, in his study of Rome and Jerusalem, the Roman elite ignored Tiberius' Jewish origins, man. So they ignored Colin Powell's Negro origins, man, his Jamaican origins, and he was treated as a Roman and not a Jew. You see, he was treated like an Edomite and not an Israelite, man. They treated him like a Roman again.
Chiefs of Staff. Powell helped guide the U.S. military to victory in the 1991 Persian Gulf War. As the Pentagon's top officer, he began the reshaping of American forces after the end of the Cold War. His famous prescription for the use of force, dubbed the Powell Doctrine, called for applying military might only with overwhelming and decisive troop strength, a clear objective, and popular support. As Secretary of State under President George W. Bush, he had deep misgivings about the timing of the 2003 invasion of Iraq. But a key moment came at the United Nations when Powell asserted...
Yeah, so he came back, man. Y'all believe that was this nigga, man. So these are just parallels between Colin Powell and Tiberius Julius Alexander. Again, I hope this was just conjecture and extrapolation. But hey, there's nothing new under the sun. All right, there's nothing new under the sun, and we all been here before, and we're gonna be here again. Okay, all right. So just to show you that, hey, there is a such thing as reincarnation, man. And Colin Powell, he's an example of that, man. Now, again, I could be wrong. Lord willing, this was edifying. And if I was wrong, Salakia, I wasn't trying to be lead anybody false way. I'm just saying, like, this man and the other and Tiberius, Julius, Alexander, they got too many parallels that's similar with one another, and you can see it, man. Like, what other top so-called African American general that you have here today? Like, there hasn't been another black Joint Chief of Staff leader since Colin Powell, man. All of them been Edomites, man. And Colin Powell was up high. He was the chief of staff in the ancient world, chief of staff in this world, man. Okay, so I hope you were edified with that. We'll say shalom on to the next.